The one thing I've noticed when I've watched you fishing on the surface is you tend to like to use a high visual one, don't you?
Yeah, a lot of the time, because when you're fishing at range, I actually like to see the hook bait rather than watching the float pull around when I get a take. I like to strike as soon as the fish takes that hook bait, and if you're using a drab coloured hook bait in the wind, you're never going to see it. So quite often I'll use a pink one, yeah.
You're not always picking the colour then for the attractor purposes, you're actually picking it for sight purposes.
Exactly, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
okay. Well, this is the first one, a little white chewed down one to, I suppose, mimic the shape of a mixer.
Yeah, exactly that. That works well, obviously, in if the water's a little bit, if the light levels are causing the water to go a bit darker, the white will obviously stand out against that.
Okay. And the pink, that's one that you seem to do really well on when we filmed Thinking Tackle on Hunt's Corner.
Yeah, it worked really well. It was nice and early, wasn't it? I don't think they'd been hammered early that year, so they were looking for sight rather than something subtle.
Yeah, and I remember that particular session, the fish that were actually in your swim, there wasn't that many, and you were, like you say, you were almost striking them as they mouthed it, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That was like the cherry on the cake. They quite often take that one before the offering. So
yeah, well, similarly to fishing on the bottom, isn't there?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
a high visual bait over drab colours, and you get to pick up quicker than, you know, the one that's the needle in a haystack.
Exactly.
Right, and you know, this is the sort of signature, as we say, just as it's glued on there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I like to have it nice and tight to the shank, so as soon as they mouth it, they're pretty much hooked.
And I suppose this is just when they're absolutely going for it, Jimmy.
Yeah, quite often you'll have to change over to a mixer to mimic the free offerings that you're using, especially when they're becoming wary of the colour baits.
Where you like to have the high visual element almost as a sight,
yeah,
I like it because they can actually taste it.
Okay.
And if I put that on there, you coat it. You've got two options, Jimmy. You can dry this in the sun,
yeah,
and leave it to sort of settle onto the mixer, but you can add it on when it's wet as well, and that sort of leaks off, and I think it actually covers the hook.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
And you know, we did some recent filming with David Seaman as well, and he'd never seen it really, hadn't done floater fishing for quite a few years, and he was shocked with the intent that the fish were taking these hook baits.
Yeah.
And I do think, you know, if you can find little edges like that where you're actually giving a bit of taste around the orbit of the hook bait,
yeah,
that's a major plus point. Okay, well there you go, vital points about hook baits on the top.